What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Pack a Day podcast. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. Great show lined up for you today. I'm going to be discussing day 4 of Packers training camp and some of the news and notes surrounding day 4, which was a little bit more ramped up than day 3. Day 3 was, Matt LaFleur actually characterized it as a half practice, and I think that's a fair way to assess it. But day 4 on Saturday was much more active, and honestly, like, some of these practices have had moments where they've just kind of dragged a little bit, not a ton going on. It was about a 2-hour practice, including the period at the end for kind of developmental players, and it flew by. There was a lot more going on. They had more team activities and just seemed to go much faster. So they definitely ramped things up on Saturday. Still no pads, but it was definitely a more active practice. And because of that, have, certainly a few more news or just like kind of notes from practice to go over, I should say. I want to start off player of the day and back-to-back days now, Devonta Adams. So first of all, Jair Alexander doesn't participate in team activities on Saturday. He kind of left early on Friday, whether it was a little banged up or just whatever. He's at practice going through individuals, but they're just being extra cautious. They keep him out of team activities. So it's Josh Jackson and Eric Stokes as the starters with the corners. And just to be fair, and this isn't even necessarily anything against Eric Stokes or Josh Jackson, there's no defensive back that's active with Jair Alexander out that can stick with Davante Adams right now. And he was just on a whole nother level. He had at least, I'm literally losing track of the Devonta Adams big plays at this point, but he had at least 2 monster catches down the field where players just aren't, the corners just aren't able to stick with him. I believe, if memory serves, he had a deep one against Jackson and he had a deep one against Stokes. I think he got each of them. But just, again, his release at the line of scrimmage, his double moves, and just everything he is doing is spectacular. He's just such a phenomenal player. And when I'm tweeting these out, of course, I'm getting some of the responses of, seems like maybe a player that you'd want to make the highest paid wide receiver in football. And yeah, absolutely. And again, we're in such a weird situation right now with the Packers and their future salary cap and who on this team is actually going to be a Packer into 2022. All of that will eventually sort itself out, and there's probably going to be some level of chaos in 2022. So we just had an off season of chaos. There's another one coming up. Enjoy this time period where there isn't chaos and you just get to see Aaron Rodgers and Devonta Adams play at an insanely high level. And again, Adams is just on a totally different world right now with how he is as a route runner and just as an overall wide receiver. So he's player of the day, and again, two monster plays. Play of the day, it was simultaneous, which is really cool. So there's a team period where what they'll do is they'll separate kind of like the first team out, and then kind of like there'll be some second team players that kind of stick with the first team, but then kind of like the back end second team and the third team kind of go to the other side of the field. And so it's 2 separate sessions going on. So on one side, you've got a deep ball from Kurt Benkert to Bailey Gaither in team where they connect for a deep touchdown. Really nice play by Bailey Gaither. So Crowder ups over there. And then about 2 seconds later was one of those Devonta Adams ones. I believe it was the one against Eric Stokes where he double moved and just absolutely cooked Stokes on the play. And a huge completion again for a touchdown to Devonta Adams. So basically in stereo with about a second delay in between the two, yet again, a big touchdown from Benkert to Gaither, and on the other side, Rodgers to Adams. So really nice plays simultaneously. Again, not necessarily great for the defense, but yeah, the big thing I will say right now about offense and defense, the offense is definitely ahead of the defense through the first 4 days of camp, and frankly, it's not even close. However, remember that no Zadarius Smith, no Jair Alexander today. Kevin King's been out. Your mileage may vary a little bit as to how much that would, help the defense. But, of course, you're installing a new system. Devondre Campbell's new in the middle of the defense. So Eric Stokes is out there. You can tell they're still feeling some things out. Maybe more importantly, no pads yet. So as the pads come on, we'll see if that, gives the defense a little bit more of an advantage. Again, definitely easier for the offense, kind of running against, or not having pads on and just making things a little bit easier for them. So right now, definitely the offense has been ahead of the defense. One other player that I wanted to mention, maybe not as player of the day, but it stood out to me. So there's team activities, and Rodgers gets up to the line of scrimmage, and he's kind of making checks at the line. And meanwhile, I'm watching Josh Meyer. So there's been some shuffling, specifically at guard and tackle a little bit here and there. But Josh Myers, rookie minicamp, OTAs, and now training camp. As much as I can remember, definitely in training camp, but as much as I can remember back, I believe Josh Myers has taken every center rep with the ones this entire offseason so far. And I'm watching him, and again, these are the first 4 days with Aaron Rodgers, of course, because Rodgers wasn't at OTAs and mini camps. And Rodgers making all these checks. Myers has got control of everything on the line of scrimmage. He's talking to his offensive lineman. He's making checks and calls at the line. This is a guy that's in his 4th day of training camp as a rookie. And remember, if you remember the scouting report on Myers, it said his IQ was insanely high. He knew how to make all the checks and the blitz calls and things like that. Like, he seems very in control of it. So that's a note that I made during practice, tweeted it out. Lo and behold, after practice, Aaron Rodgers is doing an interview with James Jones, and they ask him about, maybe a rookie or a player that's impressed. Aaron Rodgers says, talking about Josh Myers, for a guy, and this is his quote, for a guy to come in as a draft pick, as a rookie, and to be that comfortable, it's pretty impressive. And again, talking about all the things that he's doing at the line of scrimmage as well. So Josh Myers is making an impression. And based on everything we've seen so far, he's your day one starter at center. Like, something crazy would have to happen at this point for Myers not to be the starting center. You can see he's getting acclimated with the linemen around him. Been some shuffling, right? So John Runyon Jr., Lucas Patrick, Ben Braden, all are getting snaps at guard next to him. So he's not getting that continuity, which is something that we'll have to kind of keep an eye on. And then I don't believe Elton Jenkins has taken any snaps at guard yet. I believe they've all been at left tackle. So there's a good chance when Bakhtiari comes back, of course, that Jenkins kicks inside. There's even a chance that you could have Billy Turner at left tackle and then Dennis Kelly at right tackle with Jenkins at left guard. And again, he hasn't played yet next to Josh Myers. So these are all things that are going to have to get worked out. But Josh Myers, really impressive. And again, we'll see when the pads come on and stuff like that. But the thing with Myers is mentally, it doesn't matter if the pads are on or not. And you've got to be on top of your game, making all those checks and being in sync with Aaron Rodgers. And for Rodgers to call it out on day 4 of training camp, like, listen, Rodgers does not hand out these sort of accolades easily, right? He's not going to go out of his way to say that a rookie center is doing really well unless a rookie center is doing really, really well. So for him to notice it and call it out in an interview, I think is a really great sign. And again, we'll see what happens physically when the pads come on, but really great to see that Myers is handling the mental side of the game insanely well so far, again, especially for a rookie. Another player I wanted to mention, Robert Tonyan. I tweeted this out as well, but like, when you have a breakout season, it's always interesting to see what it's going to do to a player's confidence, because I don't necessarily think, even going into last season, that Tonyan ever lacked for confidence. I mean, heck, even going back to the deep ball and one of his first seasons in Green Bay from Aaron Rodgers against the Seahawks, and he's doing the little dance afterwards, and like, he's never been somebody to me that's lacked for confidence. But you can even see his confidence at a whole nother level this year after playing the year he did a season ago. He looks a little bit more slim, a little bit more quick, and you can tell he's ready for this season. There have been a few different balls. There was another one against Air on Saturday where ball was outstretched and he's like fingertip catch. Like, no matter what pass is coming his way, he's finding a way to catch it, like, every single time. His confidence is sky high right now, and it's fun to watch him play at the level he's playing at. Another player I could say the same thing about is Elton Jenkins. I talked about him just a second ago, but he's been phenomenal at left tackle. Again, no pads, take it for what it's worth, but Preston Smith, Rashawn Gary, anyone else, it hasn't mattered. Like, Jenkins has been an absolute stud at left tackle. And again, I don't know how much more we can go over the versatility of Jenkins and how insane it is that he can play any position along the offensive line and play it well. But I mean, again, left tackle is such an important position. And you have David Bakhtiari go down, and you just got Elton Jenkins. Be like, we'll kick him out there, and he'll be fantastic as well. And I'm not saying he's David Bakhtiari, right? Because like, basically nobody is. But man, to have your offense basically not miss a beat because Jenkins is out there is crazy, crazy. He is so good, and I think he's even taken a step this offseason as well so far. So he's off to a great start. Another player who had a flash play, Chris Barnes, lining up at inside linebacker. There's a toss play, to the offense's right, to the defense's left. And, Barnes attacked it, shot the gap, made a play in the backfield on A.J. Dillon. Again, not tackling, but, would have been there for a tackle for a loss. And, these are plays that, I'm not, bashing Blake Martinez here, but the reason Blake Martinez and Jake Ryan and some of these players weren't retained is because they just didn't have the physical gifts to be able to go sideline to sideline. And Chris Barnes isn't the most twitched up 4.40 athlete in the world, but the fact that he has a little bit more of that where you can get to the sidelines, make a play in the backfield, that's a great sign, and he's taken all the reps with the ones at linebacker so far, at least that I've seen, and hopefully that's going to turn into, that's going to pay dividends over the course of time, and he can continue off of what was a fairly impressive rookie season, especially for an undrafted free agent. A couple other notes here. Henry Black returned, and not only did he return, but in dime, he was with the ones at safety. So Adrian Amos moves into the box as a hybrid safety linebacker. Darnell Savage is at one safety. Henry Black is at the other. Now remember, Will Redmond still not practicing, and Will Redmond in OTAs, mini camps, etc. was at that spot. That was his job, and he was ready to be, the dime safety. Now, who knows how training camp goes on. Vernon Scott saw a little bit of time there before Henry Black came back from injury. Now Henry Black is back, and Henry Black was at that spot. So it would seem, and it's just one day, so maybe they wanted to catch Black up a little bit from some time off, but it would seem that Henry Black at least is ahead of Vernon Scott at this point, and we'll have to see when Redmond comes back. My guess is that's probably Redmond, but we'll see if Henry Black can get in that conversation for that dime safety position. Two undrafted free agents that are starting to catch my eye a little bit. Bailey Gaither, I mentioned his big touchdown earlier. He catches everything his way, finds way to get separation. The receiver position to try to get a spot is just an absolute nightmare. But I've got to think that the Packers are going to feel very comfortable that when cutdowns come, they're going to really be able to waive Bailey Gaither and have him not be claimed by another team. I'm very confident, unless he just tears up preseason at an insane level, he's probably going to be able to be retained, which means that, I have a strong penciling in already for Bailey Gaither as a practice squad wide receiver this year. And then another one is Carlo Kemp, who has made a couple plays in the backfield. And, he's going to be a little bit more of a developmental player, Kemp is, but he's another player that I don't think is probably going to be ready for the roster this season. But you can see some of the flashes from him and some of his potential. And I think as time goes on, I expect him to be a practice squad player as well. And somebody that hopefully a year, 2 years from now could be somebody that could, contribute on this defense. And again, no pads. I can't say it enough. I know I've said it like 5 times, but so you do have to take some of this with a grain of salt. But those are two of the undrafted guys that have caught my eye so far. John Runyan Jr. actually took some snaps at center, which was very interesting. I have not personally seen that in any practices prior. So he got some, it's probably just trying to get some versatility for some of these guys. As, Runyan, you expect to be active on game day. So the more they can do for you, the better. It didn't go great. He, one of his first snaps sails over Jordan Love's head, which results in a fumble and a dead play. But, just interesting nonetheless that Runyan was getting some snaps at center. And then, maybe the most interesting news of the day, Simon Stepaniak, the 6th-round pick from a season ago, decides to retire. He's been away from practice the last 2 days for what was deemed personal reasons. Now comes out that he actually retired on Saturday. So the Packers moved him to the reserve retired list. Hopefully everything's good with Simon, and it was just a decision that he didn't want to play anymore. But disappointing for the Packers. You go back to last year, they drafted 3 offensive linemen in the 6th round. Now, to be fair, your goal all along there is just to hit on one of them. But Jake Hansen's been, I'm just going to say it, he's been a disappointment up to this point, and I don't see that changing. I think his odds of making the roster are insanely low. And now Simon Stepaniak retires after missing all of last season, which just leaves John Runyan, Jr., but if he's good, you made out easily already by just hitting on one of the 3. But they've basically only got one left, and it's John Runyan Jr., so we'll see if he can kind of pay that off. And then, really the last thing is, this was, again, another non-padded practice. Monday will be a non-padded practice. I will not be at Monday's practice. That'll be one of, I think, only 2 that I'm not able to attend for training camp this off season, but will be non-padded. And then Tuesday, the shoulder pads are going to come on, according to Matt LaFleur. So I will be at that practice and reporting back there. But we've got a couple practices a couple days until that first padded practice, which I'll be back at. But I'll definitely be covering everything that happens between now and then right here on YouTube. I might do a 53-man roster prediction. I meant to do one before the start of camp, and then with all the Rodgers and Cobb stuff, just never was able to get to it. So probably will do that for Monday. But who knows? We'll see. Make sure to subscribe either way. Would really appreciate it. Again, these are going to come 365 days a year, so you're not going to want to miss them. I'll be right back here tomorrow. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.